Okay, so welcome to this walkthrough. This is going to be a introduction to the Windows command line, command prompt. It's known by a couple things. We'll kind of talk about that as we go along. So I just wanted to walk you through some of these basic commands so that you'll see how they work, and then ultimately know how to better use them. We'll be doing this in Windows. We'll be doing this in Windows PowerShell to some extent, and then we'll also be doing this primarily in Linux. And the commands change, so that's why we got to kind of get used to what's what on each of these commands. So what we're talking about when I say the Windows command line is, or let me start by saying this, the Windows command line is there for a very specific reason. And the reason that the Windows command line is there is because it makes us more efficient. It makes us have more power whenever we're controlling these things. We're not limited by what the GUI will allow us to do. We can do practically whatever we want to do. So it's just about efficiency with our job, efficiency with managing the network, efficiency with troubleshooting computers, efficiency with ethical hacking techniques, pen testing techniques, things that we're going to do. So we need to be very familiar with the Windows command line. Technically, when I say Windows command line, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about a specific program in Windows that is called command prompt. You'll see it a few different ways in Windows PowerShell. You'll see terminal, might be the way that the command's listed, and then ultimately command prompt is what we're after. This is the old, it's also known as cmd.exe. That's kind of what it's known by. But back in the days of DOS, before there was a Windows GUI, this was how systems ran. So when Windows, for example, the first time I ever used a Windows interface, a GUI interface, it was called a shell that ran on top of DOS. So it was Windows 3.0. And it was just simply, you open up your computer was on the command prompt, you typed in, I forget the command, but you typed in the shell name, and it popped up that shell so that you could visibly see files, file structures, things of that nature. So they've done away with that. DOS is long gone, but DOS was replaced by command prompt, or CMD, in Windows systems, so that we can still have that functionality, so that we can still do the tasks that we need to do efficiently. And so I'm just going to kind of give you a basic introduction of it. You're gonna become familiar with a lot more commands as we go along. This again is just a few of the basics, introductions, just to kind of get you started. So what it specifically is, or what I'm talking about when I say cmd.exe, it's just simply a built-in command interpreter. And what a command interpreter is or does is it takes commands that the user, in this case you, put into that command line, and then it processes them and executes them so that we're able to do some stuff. And it converts those into commands that computers can understand, and then gives us results back in a language that you and I can understand. So a quick sort of nomenclature for this is command line interface, or CLI, and that's what we're going to refer to it as. Okay, so let me jump over to my computer screen, and we'll do a walkthrough of this. Okay, so here I am at my desktop. Now, for the purpose of our exercise, where you're going to find what you need for that exercise is, and this is just sort of a gee whiz piece of information here, but if you open up your canvas and you go to modules inside of your canvas, you'll notice that as I've said, modules change all the time. But if you go to canvas now, you're going to find this particular section that says, and it'll be right underneath CVTech Safety, it says IT and Cyber Essential Skills, Class Assignments, and Walkthroughs. This is going to be where you find this information that's not technically listed in our checklist of assignments, but it is stuff that you need to know, kind of stuff that we go through as we go along. So the extra stuff will be there. So let's talk first about how to open the command prompt. Just like with any process, there are 1,000 ways to do the same thing. So let me just kind of show you a few. that we can use whenever we're dealing with the command prompt. The first one, of course, is the tried and true. Click the Start button, click the All Apps, and then typically where it's found is it's found in an Accessories folder. So if you have an Accessories folder, it would be listed right here under the A's. You would click that and you would see it. Other times it is in the Windows Tools or the Windows System. You'll notice how, like here on Tips, it says System. If you go to Windows Backup System, Windows Security System, Windows Tools System, you can click on Windows Tools System, and it will pull up this, and right here is your command prompt. So you can get to it that way. And then you may have also seen on our All Apps, if we scroll down here to the T's, we have Terminal right there. Now, Terminal is in effect the same thing, although Terminal may be set up on your computer to pull up PowerShell out of the gate. Terminal is also where you go whenever we use Windows Subsystem for Linux, and we want to be able to do that. So another way is to simply put, like you'll notice down here, I have the Terminal application already in my taskbar, and if I right click on that, you can see I have my CLIs, various CLIs that I can use, and listed right here is command prompt. Okay, so those are the various ways that you can get to it. Now, the quickest and the most efficient way to get to it, because we like to use keyboard shortcuts, is simply just to run the Windows key plus the R key, which will bring up your Run dialog box. So if I push the Windows key, which is on your keyboard, typically between the Control and the Alt key on the left side by the space bar, hit the Windows key plus R, it's going to bring up Run. Now it always opens down here. You can move that around if you need to. Looks like it doesn't let you resize it, but all you have to do is simply do Windows key R, it brings up Run, and then type in CMD. And when you type in CMD, that will open up your command prompt. Okay? Now, let's start working in command prompt. And let me make this a little bit bigger for you so we can see what we're doing. Now we're going to be working in command prompt. Now, when command prompt opens, because of UAC, what's called User Account Control in Windows, since about Windows Vista, Windows 2000, or Windows 7 rather, Windows Server 2008, Windows 2012, those distributions and up have what's called a user account control. And that's where we're not using the software by default with administrative privileges. It just helps you. It's more secure, prevents bugs from replicating on your computer, things like that. So user account control is typically on. And so if that's the case, then what happens is we don't have administrative privileges on this terminal for some things. And so you may get an error whenever you're doing these things that say you need to provide some escalation or you need administrative privileges. That just means you need to be able to enter the username and password, an administrative username and password, to do some of these functions. Now, if you're in, for our purposes, if we're in our own directory, we should be able to accomplish all the tasks that we're setting out to accomplish with this. So what I want to show you first is just some of the navigation things that we talked about in class. So when it comes to navigation, we can simply use CD, which means change directory. So we can do CD, and then we can change directory into, say, the C drive, or the Windows folder, I mean. So now you'll notice that our command prompt changed to say C Windows. All right? So we have effectively changed our directory, and now we're in Windows. And this would be the equivalent as if we were to open up our File Explorer, and inside of our File Explorer, we were to move, from this, whatever ones that we want to move into. Same thing that we're doing, we're just doing it fast and efficiently. Now that we are in this directory, if we want to display the contents of this directory, all we have to use is directory, or dir. And this will show the contents of the directory. Now, let me just kind of pause here and show you a couple things. If I just do dir, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a whole list of files in a linear format going down the page. As you'll notice, sometimes we got to scroll way back up depending upon how many files and folders are in this. one of the tricks that you can do is you can say dir/w, and it will put it in it still has to scroll, but you don't have to scroll quite as much, because what it will do is it'll start putting it in columns where you're seeing it in a window type of view. Now, how did I know to do that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because one of the things that we can do is on any command, whether it's cd, make directory, dir, whatever, we can do /?, and when we do, we're going to get a quick list of what are all of the tacks or the slashes that we can use, the options that we can use, the flags that we can use to get stuff done in a different way. So you'll notice it says right here, /W uses the wide list format. I used to call it window format. It's the wide list format, and you'll see that that's right there. Okay, so that's how we can use dir to display those contents. Now, another way you can do this, you can do the same thing by doing the word help and then the command. So in this instance, help dir, and what you get is the same thing. All right, so those are two ways that you can get help for a particular command. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to use a command called CLS, or it stands for clear screen, and because sometimes, as you can see, we get a whole lot of information on the screen. We need to clear it up, so we just do CLS. That gives us a fresh page. We're ready to go now, but it's clear screen. We're ready to go. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do next now is we're going to do some file management, with commands, basic commands. So let's start by, well, first of all, let me show you this. So if I'm in C Windows, which is a root, file system, if I'm in this one, and I do make directory and I try to make a test folder, you'll notice it says access is denied. That's that UAC that I was talking about, that user account control, because I can't make changes to the base structure without being signed in or having administrative permissions. I don't want to log in as administrator. I don't want to expose myself that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dir/w, and I'm going to look right down here to where it says, or actually, hang on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to back that up. I'm going to do cd. I'm going to do cd ... Okay. Now I'm going to do dir. So I'm going to go back to the parent directory of that, which is just the C directory, the root directory, hard drive directory. Now you'll notice here it says users. That's going to be where I exist. So I'm going to change directories to users. You'll notice that it changed directory to user. I'm going to dir so you can see this. JLuke is the one that I want to use, so I'm going to cd into JLuke. Now you'll notice here that my directory path where I'm at is C drive /users /JLuke. So that's the folder structure that I'm sitting in right now. And if I do dir here, you see all of my files that are in my personal folder. Okay, so I'm going to clear screen again so we can get a fresh start here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use that make directory. Okay, that's what the mkdir is for. It's make directory, and I'm going to make a test folder. Now, it just prompts. Okay, if I want to check that, I can do directory /window, and you'll notice that right here, there's my test folder that I just created. Okay, so let me clear screen again. We know that that folder is in there. Now, what I want to do is I want to navigate by changing directory into that test folder. When I do that, you'll notice that my file structure says C users JLuke test folder. And if I do a dir, there's nothing in it. It's an empty folder. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to create a new text file. And as we've talked about, text files are our quick way of getting things done. Text files, we're constantly writing into and out of text files. So the quick way to do this here is we can use the echo command, and we're going to echo hello world, and we're going to put that into a file called test.txt. Okay, this makes sense here. We're going to echo what I want it to echo, hello world, and then the greater than sign, or less than sign, greater than sign, the right pointing sign. Test.txt is going to write this. It's going to echo this into this file. So when we hit enter here, we just get our prompt. That means it worked. And we can dir, and there you go. We have a test.txt. That is 14 bytes. Okay? So now let's do this. Let's check the contents of that. And the way that we do that in Windows, Windows command line, is we do type. Let me clear this up so I'm getting a confusion. So we're going to do type, and then we're going to do test.txt. And that should give us the contents right here of that file. So we echoed hello world into test.txt. Then we asked the computer, the command line, to give us the contents of this file. And it told us what it was. And so that's where we are with our created file that we created so that we could access and get to. Now what we want to do is we want to copy the file to another location. So let me do this by saying copy test.txt, and then I'm just going to go do ... with a backslash, and what this is this is going to copy it into the parent directory. So it says one file's copied. All right, we got a good copy on that. So now if I do dir here, you see my test text. If I do cd and I do ... what cd ... does is it goes back one folder. So you'll notice I changed directory ... It took me back to, in essence, my parent directory in this one, which is that user directory of JLuke. So if I do a dir here, you'll notice that right there above the test folder is that test.txt that we moved. Okay, so we copied. So we successfully copied it. So there's one inside of test folder. There's one out here inside of my parent folder, or the JLuke folder as it stands right now. Clear screen so I can get a new fresh screen. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move the file from one place to another. That was copy. So now we have two files existing with that same name, same contents. Now we're going to move and see how to move a file. So first, let me do this. Let me make another directory. I'm going to make a mkdir, new folder. All right, and let me show you this. So here now we have test folder. We have our test.txt. We have our new folder. Okay, so far so good. So now what I want to do is I'm in JLuke, so I'm dealing with this test.txt right here. And I'm going to clear screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move test.txt, and I'm moving it from this folder, move test.txt to, and I don't have to put the pointy sign here. This is just simply command file I'm moving space where I'm moving it to. So I put new folder. Okay, that's where it's going to go, and it says one file's moved. So now if we do dir, you'll notice we have our new folder. You'll notice we have our test folder, and you'll notice that test.txt is missing out of the main folder. All right, so clear screen there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change directories to new folder. We're going to dir that. You'll notice we have our test.txt there. If we change directories to test folder, and we do a dir, we have our test.txt. That same file is existing in both places. It was copied to the JLuke folder and then moved from the JLuke folder over to the new folder. Makes sense? So far so good? Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to undo the things that we have done, or we're going to delete the trail that we have created. And so by doing this, what we want to do is we want to first go into the newest folder that we use, because we're going to just step backwards from what we've done. So let me just show you this too. Another way, you can CD back and CD in, CD forward, things like that. But you can also do a direct path CD. So if I do this, it'll take me right to where I typed out the whole thing. Otherwise, I would have CD ... back to JLuke, CD into test or into new folder. All right, so now let me DRI here again. So we have our test.txt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete test.txt. Okay, nothing happened. That's a good sign. We're going to dir, and you'll notice that it's gone. 0 bytes in the folder, and we are emptied of that folder. Okay, so now that we have an empty folder called new folder, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that folder. Okay, so first thing that we need to do is we need to CD back one space to JLuke. Now, I don't want to do delete new folder, and here's why. It says delete new folder. Are you sure? I hit yes. Nothing happens, so that looks like it was good. But if I do a dir, you'll notice that new folder is still there, and I can CD into it. So CD into new folder, and then dir, but nothing's there. What happened? If you go back up here and you look, what it said was, it said, are you sure you want to delete the contents, everything that's inside of that folder? Okay, not the folder itself. So we don't use delete, DEL, when it comes to folders. When it comes to folders, we have to use remove directory, RMDIR. So we do RM, well, first we have to back up, so CD. Now we can do RM, remove directory, new folder. Now, when we do directory / window, we'll notice that new folder is gone. Exactly what we needed. Now, let me show you this. Because remember, I said we're backing up and we're getting rid of the things that we've done. So when it comes to deleting files and removing folders, I want you to think of it with that nomenclature. Delete files, remove folders. Okay, and if you can keep that language straight in your head, then it kind of helps out. Because let me show you what happens here. If we go to JLuke, which is where we're at, and we do dir / window, we have the test folder right there, correct? And if we CD into test folder, we know that we have the test.txt file in there. So it is a folder that contains a file. Now I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to rmdir, which is remove directory, test folder, and watch what happens. It says the directory is not empty. In other words, hey, you can't delete that folder or remove that folder. Excuse me, I just told you to pay attention to the language, and I changed the language. You can't remove that folder because it has contents that you need to delete first. All right, so it won't let us delete, or it won't let us remove a folder if there's files that need to be deleted from the folder. Now, if it's one file, it's not a difficult thing to go in there and just delete that one thing. But if it's a lot of files, or if you know you want to get rid of the folder and it has a ton of stuff in it, there's a better way to do it than trying to go in there and individually removing stuff, or trying to set up a repetition command to recursively delete those files as it goes through that folder. And I'll show you where we find out about this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do rmdir /?. So what is this? This is from the command remove directory. Tell me what all I can do. That's that question mark. And it says, oh, look, if you use the /s option, it removes all directories and files in the specified directory in addition to the directory itself, used to remove a directory tree. Okay, so that's the one that we want. So let's clear our screen, and let's do rmdir /s, capital S in this instance, and then we do test folder. Are you sure? Notice it's a little bit different. It says test folder. It doesn't say test folder /, asterisk. It just says test folder. Are you sure? We click yes. No prompts. That's okay. That's good. That's what we want. dir/window, and look what's gone. Test folder is gone. Okay, so that's a lot about navigation, kind of how you can create files on the fly, how you can remove directories, change directories, create directories. It's all stuff that we're going to be using over and over and over again. Now, members, we've been talking about, it's not just file navigation and file commands that we can do with the Windows command line. Another very useful tool that this is used for is when it comes to on-the-spot system information and troubleshooting. So we can really use this command line to get at what's going on inside of an individual computer, inside of a network. As we're trying to troubleshoot some of those things that may be going on, this will help us get that information. Let me show you just 3 things here, or 4 things that will really help us out. So the first one is one that we're going to use all the time, and it's IP config. If you remember, it stands for IP configuration. IP configuration. So this is going to give us all of the information that we need over our networks. Okay, so you have here a list of network connectivity, of your IPv4 address, your submasks, all those different things that you're going to find useful, and we'll see more about using those in the future. Okay, so that's our IP config. Now, another thing that you can do is you can test your network connectivity. So if you're getting a bad signal or you're not connecting to the website, you can come here and you can say, okay, is it my network or is it their network, or can I see if this is working? And the way that we do that is we use ping. So ping, you can just simply do ping google.com and it will start a ping. And what it will do is it will start running through this process, and it'll do a series of 4 connects. Where it sends out a message and then it waits for the response. Sent package, you'll notice right here it says sent packets 4, received 4, loss 0% loss. Approximate round trip time. So this means that when I ping google.com, I'm getting a successful connection to google.com. You can ping IP addresses as well. So we can ping 8.8.8.8, which is also Google. And you'll notice you'll get the same thing. It'll run through a series of pings. It'll do 4, and then it will quit. Now you can, if you do ping ? It'll tell you like count, right? You can record counts. You can change the number of counts in count, number of echo requests to send. So if we do -n count, for example, we can do ping 8.8.8.8, and it defaulted to giving us 4 answers. We do -n, and then we want a count size of 10. If we run that, you'll notice what it'll do is it won't kick out at 4. It'll actually give me 10. All right. So if you needed to go further than the 4 that it defaults to, then you can, by all means, using that count. So that's our ping tool. Okay, so now let me show you the next command that is very useful for us to use, and that is called task list. Now, when I hit task list, you saw that list. It just kind of shot through, and that's what happens when you have a lot of stuff running on your computer, is that task list starts to get really large. But you'll notice we get a lot of really good information from this. Got to scroll all the way back up to get to the headers here. And you'll notice we get a task name, which is what this column is. We get a PID, which this is going to become essential in your ethical hacking and your cybersecurity, is knowing what the PID is of a service that's running is extremely valuable. So it gives us our PID, and then it gives us some other information, memory, how much memory usage is taking up, things of that nature. And you'll find, all of the services that are in here. This is the same as if you're doing kind of like Control-Alt-Delete to kill a task. You go to see what's running, see your task list manager, task manager. That's kind of what this is. That's what it's giving you. But you'll notice that sometimes there's way too much information, and I need to see it in a little bit more bite-sized chunks. Well, the way you do that in Windows command line is you use the more command. So you can do, let's do it this way. Let's do task list, and we can pipe it into more. Okay. Now, when we do that, and pipe, by pipe I mean that solid, vertical line that is just above the enter key. What it does is it says, okay, here's page 1, and then you can hit the space bar. Here's page 2, space bar. Here's page 3, here's page 4, so on and so forth. Okay, so you can move through them a whole lot easier, a whole lot quicker. All right, just an FYI if you're dealing with that. So again, task list is going to give us a list of the tasks or the processes that are running on our computer so that we can work with them. One final tool that I will show you that is very handy is the system info tool. So if we just type system info, we're going to get a whole lot of information about our system. So here we're going to get everything that we need for detailed system configuration. What is the OS name? Whenever we're doing OS footprinting, we can do that. Standalone workstation, registered owner. We're getting all sorts of information here. What kind of processor is it? So on and so forth. Physical memory, etc. So this is going to give us a ton of information that we need. A hypervisor has been detected. Features required privately will not be displayed. Right. So we have a whole lot of information at our fingertips from just running that system info. Okay. All right, so that about does it then for the introduction into the command line interface in Windows. Extremely useful, extremely powerful, and like I said, we're going to be using this ad nauseum. Just think of it that this is the way of life from here on out, is you're going to use these command lines. And now granted, we're going to be doing it a whole lot more in Linux than we are in Windows, but you have to start somewhere, and it's great to start to kind of know what you're doing in Windows with that same type of thing before we jump into Linux. Now the good news is Linux is a whole lot easier, and it makes a lot more sense, but some people like other languages and other operating systems. So when you're in Windows, you can use it for that. But that's it. That's the Windows command line interface, the Windows command prompt. This is not PowerShell. This is not Linux command. This is just strictly Windows CLI. So we'll end it there and have fun with the upcoming exercises for it.